welcome back to this channel. If you're new here, my name is Jenny, and if you're not, well, welcome back. Today we're carrying on with our how-to series, and today's how-to is how to grieve. But before we carry on with the lesson, please would you consider liking and subscribing to this channel, and also clicking the little bell notification so whenever anything is uploaded here, you'll be the first to know. Cool, let's get started. So, what is grief? Grief is a natural response to loss. It's emotional suffering. So, coping with loss can be the most challenging part of your life. So there are different types of grief. When we first think of grief or mourning, we immediately think of a death of a loved one. But there's quite a lot of different things that you can mourn over. You could mourn your parents getting a divorce or a relationship breakup. You could mourn the death of a pet. Maybe you lose out on a chance to fulfill your dreams. Illness, a personal illness, or maybe a loved one getting really sick. There's also loss of friendships, which I think needs to be spoken about more, but anyways. Maybe there's loss of safety. So if you are a person living in Lebanon at the moment, and just after that explosion, you might not have a safe place to live, there could be mourning over that. And also possibly selling your family home. I know for myself, I've actually never moved, so when I do move out, that could be quite a sad time for me. Even though it's quite exciting, it might be really sad. Which also brings on other types of grief, which could possibly be seen as smaller or less than. So maybe moving out of your home when you're old enough, or maybe finishing high school. Grief is personal, and everyone feels it and experiences it differently, and we need to remember that. That's probably the most important thing about this lesson. So we're going to jump into some myths about grief and mourning. So the first myth that I want to talk about is pain will go away if you just ignore it. No. Actually, that will probably make things a whole lot worse for you in the long run. The only way you heal from something like this is if you deal with it head on and actively try and heal yourself. Which sounds a bit weird, but you'll get what I mean in a minute. Myth number 2. It's important to be strong. I don't know about you, but I've been to a lot of funerals where somebody, like the head or the next head of the family, is told by the others, you gotta be strong. Gotta be strong for the others. No, this is actually incredibly cruel to say and to believe. It's cruel on yourself. And it doesn't matter what your age is or your gender. You are dealing with loss. Crying doesn't make you weak, and you don't need to protect your friends or family from your sadness. Myth number 3. If you don't cry, it means you aren't sorry, or you're not really sad about the loss. So yes, crying is a natural response to sadness or loss, but that doesn't necessarily mean if you don't cry, you're not feeling sad. Those who don't cry feel pain just as deeply as those who do cry. Sometimes I think those who do cry a little bit too much. Is it just me? I don't know. Anyways, people who don't cry are probably just dealing with the situation in different ways, and they'll show their emotion in different ways too. Right, let's get on to how to deal. How to deal with your grief, or how to mourn rather. I say how to mourn, but I can't actually tell you how to mourn, because everything is so personal, it's so unique to us, that I can only really give you guidelines on what is happening and what you should do or expect. Okay, So number one is to acknowledge your pain. Something horrible has happened to you. You need to acknowledge that and own that fact. Second thing is you need to be aware that because you're in mourning, you might have emotions being triggered. They could be completely unexpected emotions or very different ones than what you normally show. Maybe you'll start laughing at the funeral. So it's normal. I've seen it. Number 3, understand that this process is unique to you. No one else is going to process or feel what you're feeling the way you do it. And number 4, seek support from people who care about you. Now, let me repeat that. From people who care about you. Sometimes we think the people that would be the ones to step up are really not the ones. They might also be struggling with this loss. Sometimes the unexpected friend is the one that you need. Number 5 is to support yourself. Be kind to yourself. Just don't say to yourself like, oh Jenny, you're being such a baby, just get over it, it wasn't that bad. No, it was bad because that's why you're feeling that way. You wouldn't be feeling this way if it wasn't that bad. So, eat, sleep, pray, repeat. If you want to throw some more things in there, do something that makes you happy. And the last thing I'm going to talk to you about in regards to grief is the stages of grief. So before we jump into this, I want to explain that the stages of grief are just processes that you may go through. There are 5, and you might not even go through any of them. You might only go through 1. You might go through all 5 of them. You probably will not go through them all in this order. It's not neat, it's rather messy when you do go through it, and there is no time frame in any of these stages. Process number 1 is denial. So let's take breaking up from a relationship. Maybe your significant other has messaged you and has said that they don't want to be in a relationship with you anymore, and that was that. You might think like, what? You're joking, right? Like, come on. No. Maybe in a few hours or the next day you might think of something and be like, oh, I need to tell so and so, and you start typing it out, and then you realize that you actually are not together anymore and you have to delete the message. That could be a form of denial. The second process is anger. Anger is, why is this happening to me? And the anger could also be at the person who has passed or has caused the loss. So we stick with our relationship analogy. It's very common to be angry with your ex-partner. I know I had done incredible things in this stage. It's quite theatrical in my youth. Anyways, the next process is bargaining. So bargaining is, make this not happen, and in return I will do this. So bargaining stage with God, being like, God, I love this person so much, don't let them break up with me, and if they don't break up with me, I promise I will pray every day and I'll wash the dishes every day, promise. It doesn't really work that way, does it? The next one is depression. But now I just want to clarify something quick. This doesn't necessarily mean the mental disorder depression. It means the word depression, okay? So depression in the sense is that you feel immense sadness over the loss. Maybe you don't want to get out of bed or brush your teeth. Maybe you are just really sad about what's happened. So if you've watched Legally Blonde, when Elle Woods gets dumped by her significant other, and then her friends found her in bed the next day eating certain chocolates, and then she threw the chocolates at the TV. Great scene, great movie, watch it. Anyways, that could be a form of depression. I do want to chat about depression. This could be, you could fall into the stage and get stuck. You could get stuck in every single stage, might I just add. But depression could lead to actual mental health depression, where you will need to find care. You'd need to go to your doctor or therapist and talk this through, because depression is a silent killer, my friends. It is very serious and it needs to be taken seriously. Cool. The next and last step is acceptance. So you are at peace with what has happened. So the significant other has broken up with you, then you realize that maybe they actually weren't what you wanted, or maybe you weren't the right person for them, and you know that there are lots of other people that you could have a relationship with, and you move on. There's no time limit to any of these stages, and I know a lot of people get angry when they hear people say time heals. So time to heal, because you might not get over what was lost or the death of somebody. You'll never get over it, but you'll just get used to them not being there. I know for myself, my grandparents, there's lots of times where I think, let me just phone her quick and I just need to ask her something, and you're like, forgot. But it doesn't hurt as much anymore. Be kind to yourself. You'll get through it. But if you can't get through it, take support when given. We can take comfort in Christ, because Christ too grieved. Jesus grieved the death of a very close friend named Lazarus. So the story is found in John 11 verses 17 to 37. And basically what happens is Jesus is sent a letter from Lazarus' sisters, Mary and Martha, saying that Lazarus is very ill and they wanted Jesus to come over and heal him. But Jesus decides not to, because he knows what has to happen. So eventually Jesus goes out and he goes to Mary and Martha. And Martha, the one sister, meets Jesus on the road and she's like, yeah, he's died, but I know because of you he'll rise in glory and be with God. So Martha had kind of already got to the acceptance stage. She might have been very sad that her brother had died, but she accepted what had happened. Whereas Mary, who we would think would be the first one to meet Jesus, just from the previous lessons that we hear about them, she was the one who stayed at home. Eventually, she does go out and meet him, and she's upset and she falls to his feet, and she's like, if you just were here earlier, you could have saved him. Maybe she was a bit in anger or bargaining stage. I'm not sure. Jesus then asks, well, where is he? And Mary and Martha take him to the place where he is laid. And Mary is sobbing. She's really unhappy, like this is not a good day for her. And from that, Jesus is filled with such emotion and such sadness that he too weeps. And we read that verse as in verse 35. He may have just wept because he lost a very close friend, or maybe there were other reasons added to this. We know that Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead, so that means he brought Lazarus back to life. We also know that not long after this, Jesus was also crucified. But what we do know is that Jesus felt what we feel when we grieve. Jesus knows exactly how you're feeling. And Jesus wants you to know that He is comforting you during this time. I hope this lesson can bring some comfort to those grieving. If you need counseling or support, our church at St. Thomas, we have Anglicare counselors who are very willing to talk with you and walk with you through this time. I will put my email address at the bottom or in the description. Please email us. We'll email you back. I'll also add the SEDAG group, which is the South African Depression and Anxiety group. Lots of resources there. If you have any questions, please put in the comments below and we'll get back to you. I pray that you will find comfort in your time of mourning. I pray that you will never have to feel this, but we all do. And I pray that you'll have people around you who love and support you when you do have to go through this stage in your life. Pray this in God's blessed name. Amen.